Have you ever seen a strawberry that looks completely white, tastes like pineapple, and makes people think it's genetically modified? It exists. And somehow, that isn't even the strangest strawberry on Earth. Because today, we're exploring strawberries smuggled out of a Spanish colony by a French spy whose name literally meant Strawberry Man. Strawberries worth $350 each, strawberries that are almost black, and the tiny wild berry that started everything. This is All Strawberries Explained. Let's start with the strawberry that looks completely wrong. The pineberry is a white strawberry covered with bright red seeds. At first glance, it looks unfinished, like a strawberry that forgot to turn red. But here's the thing. The pineberry isn't some modern laboratory experiment. In many ways, it's actually closer to ancient strawberries than the bright red berries filling supermarket shelves today. The flavor is what surprises most people. The first bite delivers sweetness similar to a strawberry. Then something unexpected appears. A distinct pineapple note. Not artificial flavoring. Actual tropical pineapple character. The texture is softer than most commercial strawberries, which makes shipping difficult and keeps production limited. The variety traces its ancestry back to old South American strawberries that existed long before modern commercial breeding. And that raises an interesting question. If white strawberries existed before many red ones, how did the modern strawberry become red in the first place? For that answer, we need to travel back several centuries. Before giant strawberries, before luxury strawberries, before supermarkets, there was the woodland strawberry. Tiny, delicate, often smaller than a fingernail. Yet many people who have tasted one claim it delivers more flavor than strawberries 10 times its size. Known scientifically as Fragaria vesca, this berry grew naturally across Europe, Asia, and North America. For thousands of years, it was the only strawberry most people would ever encounter. The flavor is intensely concentrated. Sweet at first, then floral, then slightly tart, almost like a strawberry essence compressed into miniature form. The downside? Size. A person could spend an entire afternoon collecting enough for a small bowl. But what these berries lacked in productivity, they made up for in aroma. And eventually, a completely different strawberry arrived from the other side of the world, smuggled in by a spy. In 1712, King Louis XIV of France had a problem. France was losing the War of the Spanish Succession and risked being shut out of South America entirely. So Louis sent a military engineer named Amédée François Fraisier on a secret mission. His orders: travel to Chile, pose as a merchant, and spy on Spanish ports and fortifications. Here's the detail nobody forgets once they hear it. Fraisier's surname came from the French word for strawberry, fraise. A distant ancestor had been knighted by the King of France in the year 916 after presenting the king with a gift of ripe, wild strawberries. Centuries later, a man literally named Strawberry was sent on a military intelligence mission to South America. And while spying on Spanish harbors, he noticed something extraordinary. In the fields near Concepcion, he found strawberries unlike anything grown in Europe. Large, pale, sometimes nearly white, cultivated for centuries by the indigenous Mapuche people. He described them as big as a walnut, and sometimes as a hen's egg. Fraisier decided to bring them back. He packed 5 living plants, and to keep them alive across the 6-month journey, he reduced the crew's freshwater rations. On August 17, 1714, he arrived in Marseille with 5 plants that had miraculously survived. But here's where the story gets strange. In France, the Chilean plants grew vigorously and produced almost no fruit. Fraisier had unknowingly brought only female plants, which required male pollen to produce strawberries. For decades, They sat in botanical gardens across France, England, and the Netherlands. Beautiful plants, almost useless. Until, in the gardens of Brittany, something happened entirely by accident. The Virginia strawberry had arrived in Europe from eastern North America over a century earlier, smaller than the Chilean variety, but intensely aromatic, sweet, bright, and crucially, it could self-pollinate. In the gardens of Brittany in the 1750s, French gardeners finally noticed that the Chilean plants had begun producing fruit, abundant fruit, when Virginia strawberries were planted nearby. Bees had done what decades of botanists couldn't. They carried pollen between two plants that had evolved on opposite sides of the Americas. The result was Fragaria ananassa, the garden strawberry. It combined the size of the Chilean berry with the flavor intensity of the Virginia berry. The combination was extraordinary. For the first time, a berry looked impressive and tasted impressive. But success created a new problem. Once strawberries became commercial products, breeders started selecting for shelf life, size, and transportability, not flavor. Which is why some people insist strawberries used to taste better. And one French breeder decided to do something about that. If chefs were allowed to choose only one strawberry variety, many would choose Mara des Bois. Created in France during the late 20th century, it was designed with a single goal: recover flavor, not maximize shipping distance. Flavor. The result is remarkable. Mara des Bois carries aromas that many commercial strawberries lost decades ago. Some detect raspberry notes, others describe hints of wild berries. Some notice subtle floral characteristics. The berry is smaller than many supermarket varieties, but that's exactly the point. In France, these strawberries are often served with almost nothing added, because the strawberry itself is the star. But while France focused on flavor, another group of breeders focused on something else entirely: color. Most strawberries are red. Purple Wonder asks a simple question: why? This variety produces fruit so dark it can appear almost black under certain lighting. The color comes from unusually high concentrations of anthocyanins, the same natural pigments responsible for the deep shades in blueberries and blackberries. The appearance grabs attention immediately, but what keeps people interested is the flavor. Purple Wonder often tastes richer than expected, sweeter, darker, with subtle berry notes that differ from traditional strawberries. It's one of the few unusual colored fruits that survived beyond novelty status, because it isn't only interesting to look at, it's genuinely enjoyable to eat. And somehow, it still isn't the most unusual color on this list. Now imagine a strawberry with almost no red at all. Yellow Wonder belongs to the same broader family as woodland strawberries. But instead of red fruit, it produces soft yellow berries. At first glance, they look almost unripe, until you taste one. The flavor is intensely sweet, low in acidity, often compared to pineapple, honey, or tropical fruit. Birds frequently ignore them because they don't recognize them as ripe, which creates an unexpected advantage for gardeners. Humans know they're ready. Birds often don't. It's one of the strangest examples of how appearance can completely mislead expectations. And nowhere is appearance taken more seriously than in Japan. In Japan, premium fruit occupies a category that barely exists in most Western countries. Fruit can be a luxury gift, a business gesture, a status symbol, and few strawberries embody that culture better than a Mao. Large, exceptionally uniform, glossy, almost perfect in shape. Breeders spent years selecting for sweetness, appearance, and consistency. Many Amao strawberries contain sugar levels significantly higher than standard commercial varieties. The flavor is bold, clean, sweet, with very little tartness. For many consumers, they represent the pinnacle of everyday luxury. But even a Mao has limits, because one farmer decided that excellent wasn't enough. The name translates as beautiful princess, and it may be the most obsessive strawberry project ever attempted. Mikio Okuda, a Japanese farmer with over 45 years of experience, spent 15 years crossbreeding strawberries before he achieved what he was looking for. Each Bijinheim reaches the size of a tennis ball and weighs around 100 grams. Every berry is inspected individually. Only the most visually perfect specimens qualify. Okuda produces approximately 500 market-worthy berries per year. That's not 500 boxes. That's 500 individual strawberries. The sweetness level, measured on the brick scale, registers at 13 to 15 degrees. A standard supermarket strawberry measures around 10. At one auction, a single Bijinheim sold for 50,000 yen, approximately $350 per berry, which creates one final irony. The strawberry began as a tiny wild fruit hidden in forests, collected by hand, worth nothing. A French spy risked his life and his crew's drinking water to bring 5 plants back across the ocean. 3 centuries later, a single perfectly grown berry sells for the price of a luxury dinner. And the plant that made it all possible is still growing wild across Europe, Asia, and North America. Smaller than a fingernail, still arguably the best-tasting strawberry in existence.